Good evening and happy midweek po, Morton Grove SDA Church. Today we are going to look at the powerful and often overlooked story in the Bible, the story of Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth's story is a remarkable testimony of grace and mercy and restoration. It reveals us not only God's heart for the broken and marginalized, but also the way He calls us to extend the same grace to others. Tonight's message is titled The Grace of Mephibosheth, a story of redemption and restoration. Let's begin our study from 2 Samuel chapter 9 to verse 1 to 13. Please also read from your Bible as we study the life of Mephibosheth. The context of Mephibosheth's life. A life was marked by loss and lameness. To understand the significance of Mephibosheth's story, we need to know about a little bit about his background. Mephibosheth was the son of Jonathan, King Saul's son, and the grandson of King Saul himself. Mephibosheth was born into a royal family, which meant that had every right to the throne of Israel. However, his life shattered when tragedy struck. The fall of Saul and Jonathan. You can read the entire story in 1 Samuel 31. When Saul and his son Jonathan were killed in battle, it meant the royal family had fallen, and with it, Mephibosheth's future. In ancient times, when a new king came through the throne, it was common for him to eliminate any remaining members of the previous royal family to secure his reign. Mephibosheth, being the son of Jonathan, was target for execution. The tragic accident. 2 Samuel 4:4. In the panic following Saul and Jonathan's death, Mephibosheth's nurse fled with him to escape possible harm. During the hurried escape, Mephibosheth fell. Oh no! And he was crippled by both feet. Same age ko po, 5 years old. Only when that happened to Mephibosheth. From that moment, he lives on in a state physical weakness and emotional brokenness. He went from being a prince to a man who was lame and isolated, hiding in a place called Lodibar. You know what Lodibar means? It means a place of no pasture, a barren, desolate place. Mephibosheth's story is one of loss, fear, and brokenness. In many ways, it mirrors our own journey before we encounter the grace of God. A time when we are lost and broken and separated from the life we were created to live. The grace of King David, a picture of unmerited favor. Now, we shift to the reign of King David, who had taken the throne of Israel after Saul's death. David was a man after God's own heart. As we read in 2 Samuel 9, he wanted to show kindness to anyone left from Saul's family for the sake of his best friend Jonathan. David searched for Mephibosheth. 2 Samuel 9 verse 1 to 4. David asked, "There is still anyone left from the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" This is a covenantal act. David had made a promise to Jonathan, his dear friend, that he would show kindness to his descendants after his death. 1 Samuel 20 verse 14 to 17. Now, years later, David remembers that promise and sought to fulfill it. David's search for Mephibosheth is an image of God's search for us. Just as David thought of Mephibosheth, God's seeking us out. Not because of our worthiness, but because of His grace. In the same way, we are lost in our sin and brokenness. But God, in His mercy, seeks us out to show His love. B. David's invitation to Mephibosheth. 2. Oh, 2 Samuel 9 to 5 to 7. When David's servants find Mephibosheth, they bring him before the king. Can you imagine Mephibosheth's fear? He was crippled and outcast and likely expecting punishment for being a potential rival to David's throne. But David, instead of condemning him, says this word of life and hope. Don't be afraid, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore you all the land that belonged to your grandfather's soul. And you will always eat at my table. 2 Samuel 9 verse 7. David offers Mephibosheth not judgment, but grace. He offers him restoration, a return of the land once belonged to Saul, and a place of honor at the king's table. This was an extraordinary act of mercy. Mephibosheth deserved nothing, yet David lavished him with an earned favor. 3. Let's see Mephibosheth's response: humility and gratitude. In response, Mephibosheth expressed his astonishment and humility. He says, "What is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me?" 2 Samuel 9 to verse 8. In ancient Israel, calling oneself a dead dog was profound expression of humility. Mephibosheth saw himself was worthless as someone who had no reason to expect any good from the king. Yet despite his lowly self-image, David's grace reached him, and that grace transformed him. Mephibosheth's response reflects what should be our own response to God's grace. We are undeserving, broken, and sinful. Yet God, in His mercy, extends His grace to us. We cannot earn His favor. but we can respond with humility and gratitude. The picture of restoration and fellowship. What happened next is truly powerful. Mephibosheth was an exile in a barren land, is brought into the king's household and given a seat at the king's table. This is a picture of restoration. Mephibosheth goes from being an outcast, crippled, alone, to sitting among royalty, eating at the king's table.
Yeah.
This act foreshadows what God does for us. Through Jesus Christ, we are invited to sit at the King's table of God's grace. We are called from our brokenness and isolation to a place of fellowship, peace, and communion with the Kings of Kings. 5. Application. A call to live out grace. Mephibosheth's story is not just about what God has done for us, but also about how we should respond to others. David, as a picture of God's grace, extended kindness to someone we could not repay him. In the same way, God calls us to extend grace to others, especially to those who cannot repay us or offer anything in return. A. Grace to the broken and marginalized. Just as David reached out to Mephibosheth, God calls us to reach to those who are broken, hurting, and marginalized. This might mean extending forgiveness to someone who has wronged us, helping those in need, or showing kindness to the least among us. B. Living with gratitude. Mephibosheth's life was forever changed by David's grace. Likewise, our lives should be transformed by the grace of God. How often do we take for granted the lavish grace we have received? Let us live with our hearts full of gratitude and praise, offering grace to others just as we have received it. The story of Mephibosheth is a profound illustration of God's amazing grace. It's a reminder that no matter how broken we are, no matter how far we have fallen, God offers us forgiveness, restoration, and a seat at His table. Like Mephibosheth, we can go from being outcast to being heirs of God's kingdom. Let us remember that God seeks us out in our broken. And He calls us to do the same way for others. May we extend the same grace and mercy to those around us, living lives of restoration and love. God bless everyone and happy New Week.